The Spanish-American War erupted in April 1898, and after the Spaniards were defeated by the Americans in the Battle of Manila Bay, Emilio Aguinaldo, then the acknowledged leader of the revolutionary forces, declared the independence of the Philippines from Spain on June 12, 1898.
A group of 500 Katipuneros came up from Negilian and organized the province under the Republic of the Philippines with Juan Carino as governor and president of the board. But neither the Americans nor the Spaniards recognized Aguinaldo's declaration of independence, and the Spaniards, with the signing of the Treaty of Paris, ceded the archipelago not to Aguinaldo's government, but to the Americans. Still reeling from the effects of war against the Spaniards and not having the resources to repel a much bigger foe, the Americans, the short-lived Philippine Republic was crushed by the new colonizers. Early in 1900, news of the coming of the Americans reached the officials of the Filipino government in Benguet. The officials promptly evacuated.
When the Americans arrived in our country, the idea of a hill station was already an essential part of Western colonial heritage in the Netherlands East Indies and in the British territories of India, Ceylon, and Southeast Asia. For the Westerners, these hill stations were more than just mere vacation spots, but health resorts that is a necessity to Western life in the tropics.
Barely a year since they arrived in the country, and even before they set foot in the Cordilleras, the Americans, who have already heard about this haven up in the mountains, proceeded to form a commission, the Sherman Commission, whose task is to investigate the environmental conditions in northern Luzon. They journeyed up the mountains and were greeted by the region's utter beauty. This confirmed rumors circulating in Manila about a hill station in Benguet.
Among the members of this commission was a man who played a big role in springboarding the beginnings of what will eventually become the country's summer capital, Professor Dean C. Worcester.
As a zoologist, Worcester, the only ranking American colonial administrator who had lived in the Philippines during the Spanish period, has conducted several expeditions in the country between the years 1887 and 1893. And he has heard about this Spanish hill station situated somewhere in the mountains of northern Luzon. So Worcester interviewed several Europeans who had lived in the vicinity of La Trinidad during the Spanish period.
He also did a systematic research of government archives in Manila and discovered the detailed report of Governor General Ramon Blanco's Benguet Commission, which saved Worcester and the commission a lot of research work as it already contained information about the area's topography, precipitation, vegetation, temperature, and water supply, including potential routes for a new road or railroad from the lowlands into Benguet. This report included the proposal to build a hill station in a rancheria near La Trinidad.
The name Baguio was derived from the word Baguio, which in the Benguet dialect meant moss, which grew abundantly in the Quezon Valley, which in turn was in an area called Kafagway, generally the same area where Baguio stands now. Now, Kafagway, at the time of the arrival of the Americans, was divided among several families, notably the Carino, Carrantes, Camdas, Suello, and Molintes families. Mateo of the Carino clan was said to own the biggest portion of Kafagway, said to extend from the present-day site of Baguio City all the way to the present-day site of Camp John Hay.
The Americans formed a special committee, headed by Worcester and Luke E. Wright, to further explore the mountains of Benguet.
After a week up in the mountains and after gathering additional information from the German businessman Otto Scherer, who had lived in the area since 1896, the committee decided that Baguio was indeed the ideal site for a future city. The committee recommended the immediate construction of a road that would connect Baguio with Dagupan, and further recommended that maybe eventually a railway may be constructed from either Dagupan or Sual all the way to Baguio.
On September 12, 1900, less than 1 month after Worcester, Wright, and their special committee submitted their recommendations, the Philippine Commission appropriated $5,000 for the survey of a railroad route designed to connect the future hill station with the lowlands.
And the genesis of one of the most beautiful hill stations in Asia began.
Captain Charles W. Meade headed a team of surveyors who explored 3 possible routes to Baguio. They decided that a road along the Bued River would be the most feasible, and Captain Meade predicted that a railroad could be completed in less than a year.
Although Meade admitted that the project would pose many challenges, the need to make several short tunnels, having to make deep cuts into some mountain areas, actually, he had no idea about what sorts of challenges awaited him. In the meantime, the Americans went ahead with the construction of a few relevant structures up in Baguio, in preparation for its transformation into a major hill station.
Early in 1902, the Americans acquired a sizable tract of land from Otto Shearer, a piece of property on top of a hill where bus stations and a mall now stand.
Captain Charles Meade wasn't doing so well with the Benguet Road project, but despite that, the operation of this tiny hospital showed the commitment of the government to build a major hill station in our country. Only a month after it opened, the government authorized its immediate expansion into a much larger medical facility. Chinese carpenters were brought in to work on the new construction project, a medical facility that could accommodate 60 patients. It was finished in less than a year.
During the dry season of 1902, the first patients, mostly afflicted with malaria and dysentery, arrived in Baguio. Doctors in the facility reported that the patients reacted positively to the cool, fresh, and invigorating air of Baguio.
The Americans really believed that it was the cool mountain climate that brought about miraculous cures and brought the patients back to health. So more and more people came to Baguio to get well.
Since then, every year new buildings were added and existing ones were further developed to accommodate the ever-growing number of visitors that by 1905, the government had doubled the capacity of and further beautified the sanitarium.
So in 1905, a patient who wants to recuperate in Baguio would have to endure the long and grueling journey up the Negillian Trail, then the only passable access route to Baguio, since the Benguet Road, already a highly controversial government project due to cost overruns and engineering blunders, was taking forever to complete. But once a patient arrives in Baguio, after going down a valley and then up again, he would check in at the sanitarium on top of a hill. Parking was no problem, because they've added a stable that could hold about 40 horses. He would then be served vegetables that cannot be found elsewhere in the country. Once he starts feeling better, he could get some exercise playing tennis or croquet under the bright morning sun, but cooled by the cold mountain breeze. Or take a walk through the gardens with flowers not normally seen in the tropics. Or simply be awed by the magnificent mountain ridges lined with trees and lush vegetation.
By 1905, Baguio was on its way to becoming a major health resort. And more, for as records showed, in that fiscal year, the sanitarium serviced more than 500 visitors who were totally uninterested in the medical facilities and services available then, and were therefore classified as tourists.
This new trend pushed the commissioners to just build an even bigger structure to house the hospital, which would eventually become the leading medical facility in the region, the Baguio General Hospital, or BGH. And the sanitarium up on the hill? It was leased to a certain C.M. Jenkins, who converted it into a first-class hotel, which would eventually become the most famous hotel in northern Luzon, the Pines Hotel. Almost everything just seemed to be falling into place at the site of the future city. But the picture was not as rosy at the Benguet Road construction sites.